Hey Salt Lake, giving you my real estate market update for March of 2022. We are just coming out of the lowest inventory months that we've ever seen in January, and then just behind that, December. So that's part of what's driving prices. There's a couple things that are driving prices, and this is why the market's not going to collapse. It's going to continue to spiral upward and out of control upward. So the first one is we're looking at a true supply and demand issue. From 1980 to 2000, we created about 30, maybe 35% more housing units than we did between 2000 to 2020. Population is a lot bigger, and we created a lot more units, you know, almost 40 plus years ago from 1980 to 2000. And then when you look at that versus 2000 to 2022, right? A lot more housing units were created. So we're talking about supply and demand. Second thing is we're talking about the value of the dollar. So when you start to look at the amount of money that the Fed's infused into the system in 2020, it's staggering. Just in COVID stimulus relief, you know, that amount was right around $7.5 trillion, if my memory serves me correctly, right? When you look at the Great Recession, the total economic stimulus bailout that came over 2008, 9, and 10 was $1.9 trillion. So they infused in 4 times as much. So you've got supply, demand, you've got, you know, the devaluation of the dollar. Unfortunately, the dollar doesn't buy as much. And so it's not only got, you know, the housing market's just going crazy, but just about every other market out there is getting much more expensive. And it's because the dollar, again, just doesn't hold the value that it used to. Here locally, to give you an example, we're working with a first-time home buyer that was looking at properties between $600,000 and $700,000. We wrote an offer on a property that was listed at $625,000. We went to $725,000. This was last weekend. We didn't get it. It's a tough road to hoe if you're a buyer. I really feel for you, and it's gone from worse, bad to worse, to even worser, if that's a term. I know it's not a real word, but it's gotten worser. Interest rates went up this month. Feds increased it by a quarter point. They probably would have went up a half a point if we didn't have, you know, from a global economic outlook, you had Russia invading Ukraine. I think they were going to raise it a half a point until that happened, and then you've got gas that's just spiraling out of control. And then they've also announced that they're going to raise rates potentially another 6 times this year. So, I mean, it's 6 times at a quarter point. That's another 1.5 points going up, right? So that's the first thing. The Feds are going to be pulling out of the MBS market. If you're not familiar with that, I'd love to give you some education on what the MBS market is. But they've been infusing right around $50 billion a month in buying mortgage-backed securities. And as soon as they pull out, banks are going to end up having to hang on to all of those notes. And it means they're going to be charging more interest on those notes that they hang on to. At any rate, bottom line is if you're a seller, it's a great time to sell, but pump the brakes, right? You want to make sure that if you're selling, you've got a couple things covered. One is you know where you're going, you've already secured that property, and if you haven't secured that property, then when you go to list your current home that you're selling, you're negotiating a contract that either allows you ample time to secure that property or an out if you don't find the property that you're looking to transition to, right? Last thing you want to do is sell your home and be stuck on the sidelines as inflation is basically creeping in, prices are going up, you don't hold an asset. That basically means that the money you got from the sale of your home is worth less and less and less every day. Again, if you're a buyer, it's a tough road to hoe. Hang in there, do your best to get into something, anything, so you're not watching the market pass you by. You know, this year alone, I've had a number of buyers come to me, and they, quite frankly, they're priced right out of the market. We gained about 8% from January to where we're at in March, which is crazy over a 3-month span that you're gaining just under 8%. I've never seen it. In the last 2 years, it's been the fastest market I've ever seen. In the last 2-3 months have been the fastest 2 to 3 months I've ever seen in real estate. And I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing it for 16 years. If you do have questions, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to respond back. I respond to just about every comment out there. If they're stupid questions, you might get a snarky response, but again, you'll at least get a response. And for the people that say it's going to crash, for the trolls out there that tell me that I'm telling people to buy and giving bad advice, yeah, man, I would love to go toe-to-toe with you on a debate, because quite frankly, you don't know what you're talking about, but that's a whole different story for a different day. Again, if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Benjamin Beasley, Beesley&Company, that's my little real estate group. Would love to hear from you.